Alright, my lovers, well, what a week it's been. Today we need to talk about Ralf Rangnick. Now before we get into this, you might well notice the setter's pretty much finished behind me now. Big shout out to Neon Vibes for sending me through a little David Bowie number. What an absolute beauty. If you want to get your own Neon Vibes sign, head to neonvibes.co.uk. There's a link in the description and in the comments. They've got a Black Friday sale on right now. Trust me, it really finishes off the room. Back to the football. Alright, you've read the title by now. Today I'm going to be reacting to the news that Ralf Rangnick is going to be the Manchester United interim manager on a 6-month deal with a further 2 years in charge of a consultancy role within the senior boardroom at the club. I'm excited. I'm going to split the video down into 3 very distinct categories. Firstly, my thoughts on an interim position to start with. Secondarily, I always have a problem with saying this word. Is it secondarily? I'm going to be talking about Ralf Rangnick. And then thirdly, I'm going to be having a look at the squad and seeing who's going to work and who's not going to work under the big German. Okay? Let's crack on. Alright, let's start with my thoughts on the interim manager position because I've never seen anything quite like it advertised so publicly. And that's the thing that really interested me and something I definitely wasn't convinced about Manchester United's idea of putting out in the statement that they were only searching for an interim manager, because to me, that feels like it really narrows the pool down. And if you do have the option to get the permanent man, say Pochettino had been available from PSG, you then look a little bit foolish if you put in your statement, we only wanted an interim. It also stinks of pretty poor planning, doesn't it? And a lack of ideas behind the scene. It stinks of somebody needing to come in and rescue and save the day, which to be honest with you is true. But this has been the slowest car crash in world football, hasn't it? This has been in 0.25 speed for the last 6 to 8 weeks. So quite how a better plan hasn't been in place, I'm not too sure. It also leaves a lot of question marks over contractual situations, the January window, who's being sold next summer. It means that potentially you're writing off to some level 60% of the season, given that you've also got a £1 billion squad, some of the highest wages in world football, and some extremely talented players. That seems really bizarre. But I'm not too sure what else Manchester United could do other than appoint an interim. I do think it's probably the right decision because if it allows you to get your number one choice in the long term, be that Pochettino or be that Erik ten Hag, then appointing someone in a 6-month period is probably better than getting your third or fourth choice now for an extended period. I hope that made sense. But I'm kind of edging towards being more on board. At the start of the week, I was really anti-interim. And I think if it had been anyone other than Ralf Rangnick, I would have been pretty disappointed. So let's have a look at Ralf Rangnick then. Obviously, by now, you know all about the big German, the godfather of gegenpressing. I've heard that term used more in the last 48 hours than probably in the last 5 to 10 years. But equally, it's got me excited because this feels like the first smart thing the Manchester United boardroom have done in years, to be honest with you. It feels like one of the few decisions that's been made by the higher ups at Manchester United, the senior executives, that's had pretty much universal approval ever. Now, Manchester United obviously took 5 interviews for the interim position, it's led to believe. 4 of them have been named now as Valverde, Garcia, Lucien Favre, Ralf Rangnick, and the 5th we're not too sure about. Of those 5 candidates, I think Ralf Rangnick stands above the rest quite clearly because of an overall philosophy around football, which is like Manchester United have missed for a long time. Don't get me wrong, some of the other names linked with the interim role, i.e. Valverde, who has won multiple league titles with Barcelona, Rudy Garcia, who has got a great track record of improving middling sides, and even Lucien Favre would have been good options. But in a 6-month period, I feel like they wouldn't have had the impact that Ralf Rangnick can potentially have over 2.5 years. And I think that has been much needed at Manchester United, probably for a decade now, or at least 8 years since Ferguson left the club. And that's definitely something that was levelled at Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, wasn't it? A lack of clear identity and a lack of clear philosophy on the pitch, as well as off the pitch to a level, certainly in training, and some of the methods that were being deployed were being questioned. I think Ralf Rangnick is almost the opposite of that idea, isn't it? He comes with an extremely clear philosophy. He knows exactly what he wants from his team. And he's proven at the likes of Leipzig and Hoffenheim that he's able to spread those ideas throughout the footballing structure in order to get everyone pulling in the same direction. That is really good news for United, because behind the scenes, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has put little things into place, has put staff into positions that are highly rated. Look at Justin Cochrane. How highly rated was he? Manchester United obviously got him in the summer, and I think England wanted him as the under-21 manager. Eric Ramsey, extremely highly rated coach. Darren Fletcher, I know that he hasn't necessarily got the most experience, but sits in a pretty powerful position at Manchester United, as does John Murtaugh. And it's been those two that have been able to pull this decision off. They've led the charge, which I think is a good thing, because we've actually got footballing men making decisions about the football, rather than Ed Woodward, the previous banker, picking names out of a hat that are going to suit commercial entities. It's a good thing that he's not known on this sort of superstar scale. I really believe that, because it proves that we haven't just gone out there and got someone for the name. I also think it's a really good thing that he's not an ex-player for Manchester United, or has in any way been involved in the club during the Sir Alex Ferguson days. We tried that with Ollie, it just didn't work. Now, I don't actually personally think that Ralf Rangnick is going to have this sort of Thomas Tuchel style bounce that I've seen everybody talking about over the last 24 hours. Personally, I think it might be a bit of a struggle to start with. There's a few players that aren't necessarily going to fit with his ideas, and his ideas are going to rub some people up the wrong way. But over the long term, over the next 30 months or however long his contract is, this should be a good thing for the club. I'm arguably more excited about his 2-year consultancy role than his 6 months in charge, because of course he hasn't been a manager since 2019 at Leipzig, so it might take some getting used to. But off the field, his expertise when paired with John Murtaugh and Darren Fletcher could only be a good thing for this club. So yeah, overall I'm absolutely delighted that it's going to be Ralf Rangnick for the next 6 months and then him taking on a further consultancy role. I do think it's worth having a look at some of the squad and who is going to improve, who's going to struggle under Ralf Rangnick. So in front of me here, as you'll be able to see, I've developed this sort of hit and miss with the entire Manchester United squad. I think it's going to be quite interesting, in my opinion, to try and predict who's going to be a hit, who's going to be a miss, who's not going to work under him. Let's just crack on with it. David De Gea, I do think he's going to be a hit. He's been incredible this season for us. I don't know where he's refound this form from. I think Dean Henderson, in the long run, will probably be a hit, but I think it might be worth considering a loan for Dean Henderson at this stage, just in January, because I do think if he got that move away from the club to a Newcastle, wherever he's linked with, he stands a very good shot of going to the World Cup in December 2022. At the moment, it's a no-go. Tom Heaton, yeah, I'm just going to put him in hit just in case Dean Henderson does get on loan. Victor Lindelof, yep, I'm putting him in hit as well. I actually think he's a quite underrated defender. He's still not good enough in the air, but in a Ralf Rangnick system where the defenders are going to have to pass out from the back a lot more, I do think it suits him because his passing range is underrated. Eric Bailly, oh, he needs some discipline. Eric Bailly is the sort of player that I think Rangnick might actually enjoy coaching and could be improved by a top quality tactical operator, because he can be rash, but he does have the raw ability to be a very good defender. Phil Jones, I think, has to be let go at this stage. I'm sorry, Phil, but I know you've been a really good servant to the club, but I would probably let him go in January if you can find a suitor. Harry Maguire, I think is going to be a hit, but he's been really poor this season, and I could see Rangnick shaking some things up, and I'm not sure Harry Maguire will necessarily be as guaranteed every minute of every game as he is now. Put it that way. Rafa Varane, yeah, he's definitely going to be a hit. Really good ball progressor, and obviously one of the best defenders in the world. Diogo Dalot, another player I think could be a big hit under Ralf Rangnick. I'm not sure how much he's going to enjoy Aaron Wan-Bissaka's level on the ball. So I think Diogo Dalot might actually get some minutes for once, because as we know, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was very unwilling to rotate Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Pretty much never happened. Surely Rangnick gets more rotation out of this squad. Diogo Dalot would be a big beneficiary of that if it happens. Luke Shaw, He could be a miss, Luke Shaw, bearing in mind what Rangnick said in 2020 here.
I also think that they could do with a left back. I know they have Luke Shaw, but I'm not so sure if he's still on the same kind of level that you need to be for a club like Manchester United.
But no, I'm going to keep him in hit because I actually think he's really improved since those comments from Ralf Rangnick. Last season, probably the best left back in the league for me. He started this season really slowly, but again, feels like he needs some rotation. Ollie was so reticent to do it that I think any sort of player that has been struggling by playing too many minutes or under too much pressure will be improved under Rangnick. Telles then has to go into that same category, doesn't he? A little bit like Dalot, he's just going to get more minutes. Wan-Bissaka has needed tactical instruction more than I've ever seen a player need some coaching. Like, he needs to understand what he has to do with the ball at his feet. He doesn't know what to do. And Ollie wasn't a good enough coach or tactician to get that out of him and to pull new things out of Aaron Wan-Bissaka. So I'm going to put him in hit because I'm excited to see Rangnick coach him, but he could easily be a miss if he isn't at the level Rangnick needs for this team. Paul Pogba, I think, is going to be a miss under Ralf Rangnick. I don't think he's going to adhere particularly well to the pressing philosophy. He's rumoured to be out for 3 months now with that injury. By the time he comes back, there'll only be 3 months left of Rangnick. He's out of contract in the summer, and I think he won't be signing a new one. So Rangnick will surely look at that situation and go, well, you're leaving anyway. I'm afraid that for the last 3 months I've relied on other players. I don't see him being a huge hit under Rangnick. One matter like Paul Pogba, I think United might let go in the summer. Again, just doesn't really fit, does he? Jesse Lingard, now this is the most interesting one in my opinion, because he feels like a real Ralf Rangnick player, doesn't he? A huge workhorse off the ball, going to press like a monster. I feel like he could be a hit, Jesse Lingard. I feel like if Rangnick can spot something in him, there could be a potential new contract situation involved there. This could be a real turning point for Jesse Lingard if he gets it right under Rangnick. Now, Rangnick might not use him and might say, okay, your contract's up, I don't really want to use you. But if he does use Jesse Lingard, I think it could be a good decision. Ahmad, I mean, he needs to go out on loan in January. I'll put him in hit, but he needs to go out on loan on January. Fred, this guy, I'm telling you now, is going to be massively improved under Rangnick. He is Rangnick's wet dream. He is a pressing machine, but he doesn't know what he's doing. Like, all he does is fly out into these positions. If you can actually coach him to press correctly, rather than like a headless chicken, I really believe Fred will go up significant levels. Still not the best passer of the ball, so that's why I think he might be deployed next to somebody like Donny van der Beek. But if you can sort of guide his energy in the right direction, it could be a really, really good thing for Fred. So yeah, hit. Bruno, also a pressing monster, just runs and runs and runs, but a man who, again like Fred, hasn't had guided pressing. In the words of Ralf Rangnick, you can't just sort of press. Like, you can't sort of be pregnant. You're either pressing all the way or you're pregnant all the way. And Bruno is going to be pressing all the way. Nemanja Matic, I think time has probably come for him. A bit surprised that we gave him that new contract, what was it, a year ago now. I don't see him being like that pressing front foot midfielder that Rangnick wants. So for me, in the summer, time to let Matic move on. Donny, my God, has a player ever needed a new manager bounce so much? Donny van der Beek, I think, is going to be really interesting to see what Rangnick does with him. Is he going to be deployed as a defensive midfielder, as an 8, as a 10? Because at Ajax, he was used in a number of different roles in a side that did press and was tactically much, much better than Manchester United. So I'm excited to see Donny under Rangnick, as I'm excited to see Scott McTominay, another player who I think could really benefit from some tactical expertise. Here's an interesting one, Cristiano Ronaldo, because how does Rangnick get Ronaldo to press? He's never pressed, and he will never press. He's past the age of pressing, and he's past the age of coaching, really, now. So I'm very interested to see how he utilises Ronaldo and whether or not he uses this sort of 10-man press and Ronaldo is left as a floating striker, whether he drops Ronaldo altogether, which would be a really, really big decision. But I think he might be a bit of a miss under Rangnick tactically, but still a hit because he'll score goals. Like, even if Rangnick can't coach him to press, you still feel like Ronaldo will play and the rest of the team will have to do his work for him. I don't know whether Rangnick has that sort of mentality though. So Ronaldo is going to be a really interesting watch over these next 6 months. Anthony Martial, I mean, if you can get Anthony Martial to press, then he deserves a Nobel Peace Prize, because I just can't see it. Miss. Next up, we've got Marcus Rashford. He is a player that needs some off-the-ball coaching, in my opinion, Marcus Rashford. Obviously, electric on the ball, and his ability is scary, but it feels like he can get a bit lazy off it. So guide him in the right direction. You know, we've seen, and I've listened to interviews with Ralf Rangnick where he talks about Sadio Mane in the Red Bull group and Roberto Firmino at Hoffenheim, and how when they arrived, they weren't pressing machines. They weren't these off-the-ball demons that we see now at Liverpool. And I could see him making Rashford into something similar. Greenwood, probably the most naturally talented youngster I've seen come through the academy since Paul Pogba, like a decade ago. And he can only get better with the right tactical coaching. So let's put him in hit. I mean, Cavani's going to be a press monster. I could see him getting lots of game time under Rangnick, maybe as much as Ronaldo. And then Jadon Sancho, surely going to be the jewel in Rangnick's crown. He looked really good against Villarreal midweek, and it's sort of aligned at the perfect time. Jadon Sancho finding some form. Rangnick, who in the past has praised him and wanted to work with him. He's worked in Germany, Sancho. He's got those similar sort of crossover ideas in terms of pressing numbers. I think Sancho under Rangnick is stock. All right, so that was my sort of immediate reaction to Ralf Rangnick taking over as Manchester United manager and having a look at some of the squad and who's going to work and who's not going to work under the big German. What's your guys' thoughts on Rangnick taking over at Manchester United? Let me know in the comments below. Like I said at the top as well, make sure you go to neonvibes.co.uk. The link is in the description to get your Neon Vibes sign. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. We'll see you later. Bye.